let's start. What are the goals? What are the tasks when you start to activate and support owners? Owners are, of course, the key persons when it comes to the reactivation of vacant buildings, because they have the power of disposal. They are often strongly protected by law to do whatever they want with their property. So in case of vacant buildings, owners often do not take care of their property, and there are very different reasons for that. So the goal is to reactivate the owner's interest to rehabilitate and reuse their property, and then of course to support them in this endeavor. And also alternatively, in the event that the owner is not interested or not capable of reactivating his property, the goal might be then to convince him to sell to someone who is interested in investing and or co-developing this property. And here it's important that you proactively approach the owners of vacant buildings and to provide them with hopefully free of charge consulting services. So your task in this field is, first of all, you have to identify owners, so you have to acquire ownership information, and then you have to contact and activate the owners to become active and with regards to their property. And of course, then you should support him in his reactivation attempts. So the first one is to identify the owners. Very important is to acquire ownership information, and there are different sources how to get the name, how to get the contact details. And we more or less have defined or have found out about 3 main sources to obtain this information. So the first one is to get information from the city administration. So you can talk to, or you can check the land registry or the real estate catastrophe, which most municipalities have. You can talk to the property department or the tax and finance department, which might have this information on the owner or the owners, or maybe also the urban planning department. So there are different departments you can check and ask to get contact details. But it might also that you get contact details, you write them, and you find out they are not working. You don't have the wrong, you have the wrong address, or it's not anymore the owner anymore, and nobody really in the city knows who is really the owner. It does happen. In this case, you have to start to play detective, which means you can search the digital world. You can check for information about the owner on this property in the internet. You can also check social media, which might give you some hints and tips. And also you can talk to third parties. For example, you can talk to owners or residents of neighboring buildings, if they might know who is the owner to whom you can start to talk to. Maybe you know former tenants who lived in that vacant building, so you can ask them if they have any contact details about the owner. Also, what has been done is to put posters like an information on the building and more or less rewarding people to provide own information on this building. Also, sometimes can be helpful to check the company register, to check if any company might still be registered at this address, or has been registered at this address, and then you contact this company if they might know who is the owner or who you can contact to. And also your strong recommendation, when you get this information, put it in your digital database so that it's really available for all the people who are working on the reactivation of vacant buildings. Having the owner contact details, contact the owners on your own initiative. Do not wait that they might find about you, about the services that you can support them. It's really about that you make the first step and to contact them. Because normally there's a reason why the building has been vacant for longer, because these owners are inactive. So it's really your part to activate them, and this way also it's your first part to get in contact with them. So pretty simple. What is the main step? What you can do to get in contact is writing a personal inviting letter. And the aim of this letter should be to spark the interest of the owner in property and also in wanting to get in touch with you. This means you should think about what might be of interest for these owners, let's say, to know, to hear, and to put this in the letter. And there you have to be aware, like a private single owner might have different interest than a project developer when he's the owner of this property. And Also, you should make clear in this letter what you could offer to them, which support, which help, which services. And examples for such letters you can find in our ALTBAU guidebook. So yeah, take a look at it to get like some practical example on that. Also, the experience is, do not be surprised if the response rates on these letters which you send out is not high. This is often the case, and this is also why you must follow up on your first letter. So if you, for example, have a phone number, call, explain your intention of contacting them. And also the experience has shown, particularly also in the Chemnitz case, that owners' interest to act do change over the time. So it might be when you contact them the first time, there's no real interest, but maybe half a year later, a year later, there are interest. Something has changed that they want to act. So keep on trying and stay in touch with the people, even at the very first moment they might not respond or say they're not really interested in acting on their property. If the owner has agreed to a meeting, meet at best at the vacant building and concentrate the first meeting on getting to know one another, to build up trust, and in particular use the moment to understand the owner's current situation. What are his problems? What are his interests in the rehabilitation of the building, or maybe he's even interested in selling it. And also try to find out why the building has become vacant from his point of view, from the owner. And in this meeting should also clearly state to the owner that you want to help him to find a solution based on his problems and his intentions to reactivate the vacant building. So when you get the owner's interest, he wants to act on his vacant building, there is different support you can provide. And for this, have in mind reactivating a building, in particular a derelict one, is not an easy task, and especially it's not an everyday task for most of the owners. So you have to plan the rehabilitation, you have to finance it, you have to obtain permits, etc., etc. So many owners are inexperienced in this, and these tasks discourage owners from starting to refurbishing their buildings. So your task is to provide support to the owner in rehabilitating or in co-developing or in even maybe selling the property. And possible services which you can provide in these, but you have to define and starting to work on this issue, is that you can provide advice, for example, on building options. So you can discuss with the owner options for the property based both on the real estate situation, but also on the building situation, but also on the situation or on the interest of the owner. And you can inform them about real estate market situation, also about how needs, so what kind of demands are there for flats, what kind of flat sizes are wanted on the market, and what kind of amenities should these buildings have. And you can also inform about the rehabilitation or selling process, so what needs to be done at what time, to whom do you have to talk to, and who can provide support. Also, you can give advice on getting building permits. So again, to whom you have to talk, what kind of documents do you have to prepare. So these are all necessary advices which partners then can ease and to start doing the first step on reactivating their buildings. Another supporting service which you can provide is to indicate financing options. So if there are any funding opportunities, you can inform the owner about it. Or if he maybe has already a first financial plan, you can give the feedback on this plan. If there are any grant or funding applications, you can also guide him through this process if this is what you want and can provide this kind of service to the owners. Also, connecting with relevant stakeholders can be relevant. So if an owner might want to discuss with or within the city administration's project, you can contact then the city administration and with this person so they can discuss the project. Also, maybe you have a potential investor which would fit to this building, and you can contact that in case the owner wants to sell or maybe wants to co-develop his property. Also, you can connect to different financing programs and financing institutions for all the grant applications. Also could be a service that if an owner maybe has already successfully renovated a building in your city or in this neighborhood, you can also make a contact to these owners, and so he gets also information from other owners. So these are certain services which you can provide, but of course, when you take a look at our guidebook, you find further services which can be done to support the reactivation of vacant buildings. Also, a recommendation which we have based on our ALTBAU network is being in touch with the owners provides you also with a unique opportunity to receive further information about the building and to better understand the reasons for the vacancies and also about the state of the building, the owner's interest, and so on. So when you meet them, you do interview them and also spend some time really to understand well their personal situations and their personal interests, but of course also tell about what services you can provide. Also what some partners did, that after such first meetings you can send also out questionnaires to the owners, and by this to receive some further information, and also some templates or examples of these questionnaires you can also find our ALTBAU guidebook. This as introduction from me, and now we will come to the city examples, and if you have any questions to what I just have said, please join me during the next Meet the City coffee at the ALTBAU expert table in the social lounge. This time we have two presentations. The first one will be from the good practice case from the city of Chemnitz. So they will tell you about their experiences activating and supporting owners, and then we will have another presentation from Seraing, which tell about their methods, their experience, particularly also about their lessons learned to become engaged with owners, because it does not always work perfect from the very beginning. So yeah, this is also an important lesson learned. So yeah, if you have then any questions to these presentations, please then use the Meet the City coffee break after these two presentations. And with this, I would like to pass the mic to Martin Neubert from the city of Chemnitz.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here again. This time I'm going to talk about the owners. So we're going very much into the heart of the work of Chemnitz agency, Agentur StadtWohnen Chemnitz, and what we worked on over the past 6 to 7 years. As Niels already said, owners are really key to what is possible also with the degraded buildings. If they don't want anything, and if you cannot make the move, you probably won't be able to make any changes, or it will be much harder. So for the beginning, I'm going to introduce you, to some characters that we've been working with. The first one would be Mrs. G. She inherited the building in the 1990s from her husband. And by the time, more and more people moved in. So after all, she was the only person living in a house of 12 flats in precarious living conditions, not knowing what to do with that building and being kind of stuck in the situation. Another character that we've been in contact to, another owner, is Mr. Ö. He's an owner from out the European Union who bought the building at an auction and has probably never ever been to Chemnitz. And it was very, very difficult to finding out who he is and where he is. There have been requests by neighbors who had problems with the decaying building, and even the city administration had to step in and perform substitute measures. Visit the building with the building control department, the restoration and rehabilitation department also to come in. And he's also a young owner who wasn't from Chemnitz, from the other end of Germany, and who bought the building just before the agency came into play, and who came in with somewhat naive ideas and some conflicting statements of what he wanted to do. So this is what we found, and this is kind of like the scope of owners that we came in contact with. Yeah, so generally there are three different lines of what owners want. There are owners who want to renovate and use their building. They have sometimes very individual time frames, but it's their goal to take the building back into a renovation and a use. Then you've got people where it's not really clear what they want, or they just want to wait until times change or personal situation or financial situations change. And then there is a third group of owners who actually want to get rid of their buildings for various reasons. And this is the task of the agency, to really find out what is the best way to approach that and to find solutions there, because that's what it is. Finding solutions, tailor-made solutions for those specific situations. So what we can offer? Basically, for those who want to renovate and use, we can coordinate and support them through consultation and networking. So we connect them to the different city departments who are of importance. We connect them to grant managers, to different people who can help them to get going. We've got those people who wait, who are unclear. There, it's really important really to stay in touch, to communicate with them, to negotiate, and to look what is possible, to help them to find their personal best way to deal with the building, which usually is either to renovate and use the building or to get rid of the building, which is the last one. And this is one of the key tasks that the agency is working on. Actually, we spent a lot of time on that, really to find a suitable new owner for the building. So we publish the building. We search for new and capable owners that really fit to the buildings. We do site visits, etc., etc. Yeah. But still, that there is a framework which we can work. We do have some incentives that we can offer. Our work is generally free of charge for the owners. They don't have to pay anything. It's really an informal project. We're working, the owners do not really have any fixed obligations. So we are very solution oriented. We're trying to help the owners to think out of the box, to get the bigger picture. To move forward with the building. We've got a growing network of stakeholders that we can connect the owners with. For example, also in terms of financing, grants, etc., that we can give them an idea where to go and where this can go. But there are also things that we cannot offer. We can only be the spark, the starting point for certain initiatives. Sorry, it looks like I've lost my presentation. I'm going to restart it again. But after all, it's really the owner's obligation to get going. We can only be catalyzing the process. For example, we also cannot really go deep into the situation. We cannot create any fully fledged building situation profiles, for example. We cannot really design financing plans, but still we can go the first step with the owners. Yeah, but generally, when it's coming back to life, back to normal, it's really what we often describe as a detective work. So we really often start from scratch. We only know from the city of Chemnitz who is the owner of the building and under which address is he available or officially registered. This often works, that we get a positive reply, that we get in a talk, but often there is also no answer by the owner. Then we have to try to look for other ways to contact him, either through a phone call or sometimes very curious and unusual ways of contacting them, either through using Facebook, for example, or WhatsApp, talk with neighbors, or even have a personal visit to the place where they actually live. But this only happens a few times. What we really want to achieve is that we get into a personal talk with the owners, that we really find a working level with them. And this is really key. And as soon as you get that, you are able really to move things forward bit by bit. There are different reactions on how that could go. As I said before, either the owner says, I want to keep the building, then a cooperation is possible. You can analyze the different assets and barriers and then support the owner of taking it further. Or, on the other hand, if the owner wants to sell the building, you also cooperate and understand really what the owner wants and how the situation of the building is, document it, and then publish it, and search for a new owner. But if the owner is undecided, if it's not clear what he wants, then it's really important that time after time again, you will really restart trying to contact him, really to engage in conversation. But sometimes it's really a long time that it takes until you can really find a solution and to get something moving. I'm restarting the presentation again. Yes, but I can still continue on to talk. What is important for me to say is that all of these things are in the guidebook. Many things are just written in short in there, and then there are links you can follow on where you can get into the different presentations that we did in the network meetings, and you can dive deeper into the different topics, also what Chemnitz was doing. And last but not least, you're of course always welcome to contact us directly and ask and get into conversation with us. Okay, yes. One thing that is really important also at the start of owner contact is that you get some kind of a formality to cooperate with owners. We managed to do that through a questionnaire, which the owner eventually signs at the bottom and confirms, yes, we want to cooperate with the agency. We want to take it further, and also the questionnaire helps us to understand better and to really fill in the gaps of what we know of the building. So we ask them to really be serious about that and really have this document there. Still, what we offer is free of charge to them. Basically, there are some parameters for owner contacts that we found to be important. When you have an agency like that, it's always important really to bear in mind that first and foremost aim is the public interest to get buildings from vacancy to use and from decay to renovation. So this is what you want to achieve. And all the other things are just means to an end. So whatever you do, try to be solution-oriented. When you talk with the owners, but also with the other stakeholders, take the different steps towards the common goal. Point out opportunities that are there. It's important that you're transparent. Always make clear who you are. In our case, we always make very clear that an initiative by the city of Chemnitz, a project which is carried out by a private partner, and that we're helping the owner to take it further. We're public, but in a way on the side of the owners. You really have to be insistent when you're in contacting with owners. Sometimes it's really hard work to keep regular contacts. There are owners we've been in contact the past 8 years, and we're contacting them on a regular basis, and nothing yet has happened, and we're still working on that. But sometimes it really helps to go the small steps. Start again bit by bit. And last but not least, be polite. Maintain a patient and friendly attitude. Don't take sides between the different stakeholders that are in the process, because sometimes you are simply in between. And we are a coordination hub. We are, if you take the picture of carrot and stick, we are not the stick that the city of Chemnitz can perform by different measures, but we are really the carrot. We are trying to offer some incentives and solutions. To round off this presentation of owners, I want to get into what we call the typology of owners. This is something we've created really to get an understanding of how owners can be characterized and where and how to approach them. So this is a very subjective categorization of our experience here in Chemnitz. In your local situation, it might be different, and I'm not going to present the whole thing, just some glimpses, just some examples on how that works. You can have a look on our URBACT website. We have also produced a short article with a link on that, and it's also in the guidebook. It's always that we've got a character which is put in the chart, which you can see on the right, which has parameters. One, which is the vertical axis, it shows how likely a success is with a certain kind of owner. And then you've got the horizontal axis, where it shows if the work with a person or a character is rather simple, or if it's difficult and takes a lot of work until you finally reach a success. So let me take you into that. For example, we've got Mr. Yourself. It's a kind of a person. Usually, he has been the owner of the building before we came into play, and he does have his own plans for renovation. He wants to do something. He's got a plan with the building, and he's step by step moving forward to that. There's not much work we can actually do as the agency. It's an owner who wants to do something. We can only help really to level out some of the obstacles along the way. For example, networking with the city administration in places where that's necessary. Those people are nice, because then you do have some easy successes. But sometimes these people, bit by bit, start to change to Mr. Don't Do It Yourself. He's always talking and talking and talking, but never really starts, never really materializes. There are no noticeable activities, but the owner also does not really want to sell the building. So there are only a few things. If you've got owners like that, if they don't want to and if they're unable, you can only talk and communicate and try to level out the obstacles. But often these are the ones that even after years will remain unused. When we're going back to Mr. W, the one I introduced at the beginning, he's a Mr. Do-It-Yourself after all. He was one of the persons who, at the very first time, we thought he's Mr. Do-It-Yourself. But then, after all, he didn't start. Nothing happens, and it was really a cumbersome and a difficult process. But in the end, it actually worked. After 4 years, for the first time, we met him in person and met him at the building, and we were able really to negotiate cooperation with the city, also with urban renewal funds. And now he's bit by bit moving on with his renovation, and we're very positive that within the next year he will actually finish what he started. Then we've got Mr. Obscure. His contact is possible, but often he's unavailable for a personal talk. It's never really getting substantial. The information you get is inconsistent. The building is getting worse a bit, and there is no fruitful approach possible by the agency. You remember Mr. Ö from the very first slides. We've finally been able to contact. He didn't react anymore, and so there was actually a foreclosure in the beginning in 2017, and he was forced in that way to sell the building through a public auction. Another one would be, for example, the speculation international limited, how we called it. Speculators, I'm sure you know what is meant with that. Those are just owning the buildings for the gain of money and to sell it on for a much higher price. They are difficult to reach. There's not much work we can do, and we try to stay out of getting into those speculative processes as a project. So you can more or less only wait on what happens with the buildings. Sometimes it helps really to set up some contacts, but more or less these are kind of outside of our reach. Then we've got the project limited. Those are also some like a professional Mr. Do-it-yourself. They're very active, and they usually do not really need any support because they know what they're doing. They're debugging it. But sometimes it really helps to establish a long-term working relationship, because if there's a professional investor and owner, he's also able to maybe continue on with other buildings that you have on your list. And then the last person I want to introduce is Mrs. Overwhelmed. It's often a passive way of gaining ownership. For example, we've got people who inherited the building, or the partner went bankrupt, for example. These people are usually in a difficult position because they do not really know what to do with the building, especially if they're problematic and in a problematic area and a problematic state. And they're very ready to, and it's very positive, because then as an agency, you've got a chance to really change something for the better, to develop solutions together with them. So one of those people would be Mrs. G that we've talked about at the very beginning. So after we finally got in contact with her, we bit by bit took the process further. For example, she never agreed that we would be allowed to publish the building on our website. So we were very careful and transparent with every single step that we took. So, after all, the building was sold, and by now it's renovated and reused. So when you are doing an agency like that, that's what we found out, is that you're taking on different roles along the way. You're either a detective, really searching at unusual places and through unusual channels about information about owners and how to contact them. Sometimes, like in the case of Mrs. G, you are really a social worker, more or less, accompanying people towards a solution that fits everyone, particularly also themselves. And then sometimes you're more or less a bit like a real estate agency, really publishing and showing what's possible with the building and taking it to the next level. But I will talk about more about that in the next session, which will be about investors and users. Yeah. Last but not least, keep in mind that it's really about the public aim to get buildings from vacancy to use and from decay to renovation. And it's really a task that you do for the best of the city and the citizens. So that's for me right now. I just saw a question here that came in through the questions button on the right. You know, you can also use that. What about the owner's interest? I understand that we will always try to match these both interests, public and private. But what if some cases they will be contradictory? Good question. I mean, these could be very different reasons why they are contradictory. For example, speculation is one of those. Then you have to try to navigate in between the different interests. But usually it's possible if you've got your time and you also communicate with the different parties, you will at some point find a solution. At least that's our experience from Chemnitz. I'm looking forward to our partner cities will find out about that. Okay, I'm turning off my presentation again and passing on the mic back to Niels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. And I think what's very important, what Martin said, is that owners are not all alike. They need very different approaches. They need different support. So when you start working with owners, really be aware of these differences and really try to help them also then the owners in these ways, as Martin just explained. So next, I would like to invite again Seraing and Bénédicte to present us their experiences in activating and supporting owners.
Well, Okay, so hello again. So I'm still Bénédicte Borckmans, and for those who maybe were not there previously in the morning, I work for ERIGES, the municipal agency of the city of Seraing. And ERIGES so is a non-city partner in this ALTBAU network, but working, of course, very closely and collaborating with the city of Seraing is a project to rehabilitate vacant buildings. Concerning the contact with owners, the very first thing we did was to send a letter and a questionnaire to owners of vacant buildings. So it was based on the inventory of vacant building we had made. So we have this inventory of 352 potentially vacant buildings. And we focused first on the completely vacant buildings, which were a bit more than 120, because we also have partly vacant buildings, which are mostly vacant commercial ground floor. And, you know, the shops and the shop owners, the situation is different and the contact is different. So we will contact them later on. We first started with the vacant buildings. So we've sent this letter and a questionnaire. The objective was really support-oriented. Of course, the message was to say, let's try to solution to the vacancy problem. Here, we didn't want to come with a stick and say, well, you're owner of a vacant building, you are going to pay the tax. No, we really wanted to be support-oriented. We wanted to let them know that we had, there were existing services to help them to renovate or to find solutions, to find an occupant for their house. We also wanted to give them the message was, you know, better to do something than to do nothing, because they don't do nothing, they might have to pay the tax, and the tax is increasing over time. So after 3 years, it's getting pretty, and so a building that has been unoccupied for like 10 years or more, they can pay quite an important amount of money. So it's better to invest it in the renovation than in paying tax. Through the questionnaire, we wanted to understand the situation, the reason of the vacancy, and also asking them about the potential they might have with their vacant building. Did they want to renovate? Did they want to sell, to rent? And we were also asking what kind of help they would need most, like financial help or help with renting, management. So we got an average of 15% response, which is not bad, in fact, because when you send a letter like this for the first time, I think Chemnitz had the same results. You can count on a response of 10 to 15%. So to owners was also an opportunity to launch a call for 3 volunteers to make a diagnosis on their vacant buildings. And we had 5 volunteers, so we chose 3 of them to make to launch a diagnosis, a renovation diagnosis. The owners could fill out the questionnaire online, or they could send it by mail or even by the post. So they had, you know, different ways to answer this questionnaire. So as I said, we took the chance through this letter and questionnaire to find 3 volunteers to make a renovation diagnosis. So of course, with these 3 volunteers, we had a personal contact, and they received the visit of our architect for a complete inventory of their building. So the architect made a a visit, interior, of course. After a complete study of the building situation, the architect was able to provide a list of the different works that had to be done and their priorities. The priorities, of course, there are urgent works maybe that have to be done, that might require urgent conservatory measures like humidity, stability. And then the architect made a list of necessary works to meet healthy safety measures or energy efficiency and regulation imposed by the municipality and the region. And then they made a list of more standard renovation works, really for the comfort of occupants and the aesthetic of the building. Now, when we had the list of all these works that to be done, the architect was also giving an estimation of necessary budget to carry out the works. Then the owner also received information relating to municipal regional regulations applicable to housing renovations, as well as information concerning the premiums and the tax reduction that they can get when they renovate their house, especially when it is energy efficient renovation. So these three pilot diagnoses, of course, were very useful to these three owners, but they will also be useful for other owners as a guide, as an example, to initiate their own diagnosis and to guide their future choices. If the owner chooses to sell his building, then these renovation diagnoses will be useful to the next owner, the new owner. And the good news is that after we've made these three diagnoses, since then, 2 of the houses have been sold. So, well, I guess it's not only because of this renovation diagnosis. Let's hope that it was a bit useful to make the selling of this building maybe more successful. Now, after the letter, the contact letter, we try to establish a personal contact with the owners that had expressed their interest for an advice. Well, some owners, they answered the questionnaire, but they said they didn't want any advice, but they were keeping the contact, maybe contact us later. And other owners answered that they were interested to be contacted by us. So we were asking in the questionnaire a telephone number or an email address to get a personal contact. And so those owners asking for personal contact, we've contacted them. It was a contact by phone or by mail due to the sanitary condition. Of course, we couldn't have a personal contact yet with these owners, but we managed to have an interesting contact and to give them some advices and to orient them to the good person, depending on their personal problem. We oriented them by phone, by mail, giving them the contact, the good person to contact to solve their problem, their personal problem. Another way we used to contact owners was to make a promotion campaign to give the message that there were existing services to help owners in their renovation projects or to assist them with the rental management of their building. So we've made these big facade posters of degraded houses. So you have an example here in the picture. It covers here 2 houses, very much degraded, so waiting for their renovation. At least the place is nicer and cleaner, and it's also an opportunity to communicate because the message says we are all together, let's embellish our neighborhoods. The city of Seraing wants to boost the renovation, refurbishment of housing, and the occupation of vacant buildings. And there's a telephone number that owners can contact if they need help to renovate we've also made a campaign with flyers and release, always with the same message: we are here to help you, please contact us. And we've also created a new service with the help of the city. It was implemented by the city, a service to owner, a support for basic renovation and rental management. And so there's also a website communicating on this service, and also a list of public houses, apartments available for rent. Now, this is another example of letter that we've sent to owners. It was in fact a project of facade painting we've had in a street that was a street with lots of little houses with particularly degraded. So we decided to paint all the facades. It was funded and implemented by the city, and the painting was offered by a local company. So a letter was sent to owners to explain the project, and we needed the agreements. They had to sign a contract, a servitude agreement, allow the use of public funds for projects that are of public interest but on private property. And the only obligation of the owner was to keep the facade clean and to maintain it until every 10 years. It was not easy unless it was completely free to start. But after the first 5 houses, it showed the example, and we had then more owners who gave their agreement. And also had another project of stickers on empty commercial ground floor windows, also funded and implemented by the city. And there we've organized evening session with shop owners and neighborhood association. The invitation was sent to shop owners and also posted on Facebook. And the objective of this night session was to explain the project and to exchange about the shop owners about the project. We had about 15% owners participating to this project to put this kind of windows here on the empty commercial ground floor with a message saying that we are trying to reconstruct and to reboost the city, the neighborhoods. And the last thing, the objective of the ALTBAU network, create this housing agency. So we are about to do it. It will be open in May 2021, next month. And of course, it will be a new opportunity to contact owners. We will provide a closed local service located in the city center with accessible opening hours. We will create a proper identity of this housing agency with a logo, graphic design, independent from the city service. It will really be a place to meet owners, and where owners can meet us and create a personal contact. We are also planning to organize evening sessions, evening information session, thematic about the renovation, energy serving. And it will also be an opportunity to communicate on existing opportunities for potential buyers and investors. So this service, this housing agency, is funded and implemented by the city with the support of ERIGES and also several local partners active in real estate, renovation, energy efficiency. And yes, well, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention again.